Hello, I'm Linda Barrington, a JEA Mentor. I've been with the Mentor Program since its inception in 2007. This short presentation focuses on developing a positive relationship with your mentee's principal. This is our agenda. We'll move chronologically from the first time you meet the principal until you and your mentee conclude your time together. The first part of establishing that relationship with the principal is actually before the first meeting. I think of all the times we meet with the principal, that first time may be the most important, so it's important to prepare. I've highlighted 2 sentences at the start of the principal agreement that are easy to overlook. This agreement helps the 3 of you to establish a good relationship. There it is, in writing. I think it's helpful to point that out to the principal and the mentee because this can be the beginning of a beautiful relationship. Mentoring relationships are built on trust, respect, and acceptance. This is an opportunity for all 3 to agree on things before the mentoring has even begun. To prepare for this meeting, I sent a copy of this agreement to the mentee in advance so the mentee can share it with the principal. I don't want the principal to feel as though he or she is being ambushed. I want them to know ahead of time that this is a formal mentoring program and we are professional mentors. The principal needs to have a chance to review this agreement ahead of time. Another thing I do is send or give copies of the Mentor Program brochure to the mentee to share with the principal in advance. We don't go over them in detail at the meeting, but I do let them know that the brochure provides some background and additional information about the program, including examples of mentees' testimonies about the value of the Mentor Program. Finally, I order copies of Quill & Scroll's Principal's Guide to Scholastic Journalism. I give a copy to both the principal and the mentee at the meeting, explaining why this book will be valuable to both of them. During the meeting, I make it very clear that I have an agenda, and this is it. These 3 goals are inside that mentor brochure in case you forgot them. If you've got it there, you can have the brochure open as a reference for yourself. I talk about each one of these and how this is what the Mentor Program can do for this school's publication program. We want to help new advisors improve their practice. We want to build strong journalism programs. We want to retain quality journalism advisors. At this point, I always make a big point that my job over the next 2 years is to make sure this mentee falls in love with journalism and never wants to leave it behind. And I talk about that second and third point by using the analogy of the football or basketball coach. You don't want to change them every couple of years. If you're going to build a strong program, you've got to keep the same person there, getting better all the time and rebuilding that team. And that's what we want to do with the journalism program. I got to tell you, every single principal nods and gets it when I say that. But just because they get it, it doesn't mean they're going to remember it. But at least they've heard it at this point. If the mentee and I have already met and set goals using the log, then I have that log with me for reference, and I share the goals with the principal at that time. If we haven't done this, then I just speak generally about it. That in fact, this is a formal mentoring program. We have paperwork like this to keep track of what we're doing or talking about. The log, by the way, is a very useful tool that we'll talk about and practice with at the training. During the meeting, you should allow time for the principal to ask questions. And usually this will be in conjunction with going over all the aspects of the agreement. We don't necessarily go line by line, but I generally say, Is there anything that you have questions about that you'd like to discuss before we sign the agreement? Sometimes we may need to modify the agreement, and there may be some things that need to be modified. For example, there's a line there about how the mentor has to be familiar with the curriculum. Some schools will have an after-school publication, and there is no curriculum as such. I think it's important for both of them to know that making modifications is suitable. The important thing is we agree. We agree on developing this program and with me working with this mentee. That's what's important. I make sure that each one of us has a copy of the agreement during the discussion. Then all three of us sign one sheet. And then I ask the mentee to go to the copy machine right then and make copies so each of us has copies of the signed agreement. At training, we'll talk about how to send a copy of the agreement to the mentor chairperson. During the course of the year, I like to stop in occasionally to visit the principal. We chat about what's going on, what's going well, how the students love working on the publication, how the advisor is growing and getting better and is successful. But I just want to caution you to remember that if you do this, that you don't evaluate the advisor. During training, we'll talk about how we have a confidential agreement with the mentee, and we are not reporting on the person or giving an evaluation of how well a person is or is not doing. I'm just talking about a chat with the principal to pump up the program and talk about how it's great. One of the times I stop off to visit is right after a convention, when I can drop off copies of some materials. Occasionally, I may have to make an appointment to talk with the principal about something of concern, and that would be with the mentee. That's not something I would do on my own. For example, we may need to talk about how important it is for the mentee to meet other advisors and attend a SPA event or national convention, or maybe how important it is to enter the publication for critique or students to enter competitions, and why the advisor needs more funding to pay for these things. Rarely, but on a few occasions, I may stop to visit the superintendent. That's usually in a small district where the superintendent is in the same building, and I could just drop in, probably without an appointment. If so, I'd bring a copy of the brochure, similar to the meeting with the principal, and again, comment on the successes of the advisor, the students, and the program, and certainly commend the principal for his support of the program and allowing me to be in that school. Another way the relationship can be developed, if the administrator is really good, is to have the mentee nominate her principal for an award if one is available through the local or state SPA. Here, one of my mentees nominated her principal for the Kempa Administrator of the Year. We allowed her to present the award at the advisor's luncheon, and of course, with a standing ovation. The last section here is concluding the mentee term. I like to do a last meeting with the principal. I've done this both ways, sometimes with the mentee and sometimes without. It depends on their schedules. When the mentee is with me, that is when I take time to present her with the certificate of completion. It's a fillable PDF where you can type in the name of your mentee, print it out on a color printer, and then sign and date it. When I meet with the principal, I like to summarize those accomplishments. In fact, I'll probably bring along the final log with me because that's where the mentee and I would have already listed the accomplishments. This may sound a little funny that I'd need to have a reference with me, but if you have 5 or 6 mentees over a couple of years, it all becomes a blur sometimes. So I really depend on that log to be sure I'm talking about the right things for this mentee. At this final meeting with the principal, I make sure he knows how much the mentee and I appreciate the support he has given to the journalism program and to the mentor program by allowing me to come in and work with this teacher and the students. I conclude by saying that I will continue to stay in touch with my mentee. I say this in front of the principal to let him know that I'm not disappearing and will continue to be a resource to my graduated mentee. I'm going to continue an informal relationship with my mentee, and in fact, the principal may see me in the building in the future. In the summer, I like to follow up with a letter to the principal. I've taken some generic information from other mentors' letters and crafted this template that you are welcome to use. I tweak the letter to add personal connections and comments that refer specifically to my mentee and her program. You can see, for example, in several places that I've underlined, I've made specific references to my mentee, Rachel, and her students, and her accomplishments. If you have questions about any of this, feel free to shoot me an email for a timely response. You may also save your questions for mentor training. Monday afternoon sessions will focus specifically on how the JEA Mentor Program operates and what your responsibilities are. Tuesday, we will focus on the act and craft of mentoring. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.